Ladies and gentlemen, good evening, and welcome to the new episode of Signal from Brussels. Today, I'm very happy to be hosting an MEP from Lithuania, Paulius Saudargas. Thank you, Paulius, for taking the time and joining me in studio.
Hello, and thank you for having me here.
So, Paulius, you come from Lithuania, the Baltic states. We know right now geopolitically situation is very intense. A couple of years ago, Russia invaded Ukraine. And of course, your own country has very unpleasant history in the previous century with Russian invasions, well, the Soviet invasion. So how do you look at this? How do you look at the war in Ukraine? What kind of reaction did it invoke in people in Lithuania?
Well, to start with, we need to start with history. You said unpleasant neighbors. Yes, Russia have never been the democratic country. Never. Maybe during Yeltsin's time, like a little bit moved towards democracy. But since the Tsar's period, then Soviet era, the Bolsheviks came, and the Stalin era, and then to Putin's era. So they always been an autocratic, non-democratic, very aggressive, very imperialistic state. And we know it. We survived it. We survived for 50 years being in this gulag camps and being in the Soviet occupation. So we know and we prepare. Since the beginning of our independence, so more than 30 years, 3 decades, we are preparing. We are preparing to be stronger, to be more independent, starting from energy and ending with defense issues. So we know. And of course, when war in Ukraine started, we were really afraid that probably we will be the next. Mm-hmm. And only Ukrainians are holding the front line. We need to say many thanks to Ukrainians who are dying for us Europeans, to be safe, to be democratic, and to be independent. They are dying for us in the front line right now. But if they will fail, Russia will go forward. We know this, and we are preparing.
No, for sure. Support of Ukraine is crucial, and it's very important that we stick with the support regardless how long the war takes. Like you said, they're the ones fighting for us right now for the security of the entire EU. Exactly.
We need to support Ukraine. We need to be much more fast to inviting Ukraine to be a member. Okay, not only NATO. NATO is important, but membership of European Union is also vital, very important. I think it will play in the benefit of Europe itself, because Ukraine is a very strong country. They are very resilient. They have a very good agriculture sector, and of course defense industry. Now they're really leading in the world. But at the moment we are experiencing a lot of hybrid threats. Mm-hmm. Hybrid threats coming from Russia.
What are hybrid threats?
Well, to name few. The drone incursions into our airspace. We had drones landing in Poland. We had drones in Estonia and Lithuania. We still don't have capabilities, effective capabilities to take down the drones, because using the F-16 and a missile which can cost from $500,000 to $1 million euros, it's not effective way to take down the drone. So we need to strengthen our capabilities to detect and then to take down all the drones. Then we had a few years ago, we had a very interesting phenomena in Lithuania, maybe not in Europe knows well this phenomena. We had an illegal migration crisis. Because before that, we didn't have much immigrants from the world to Lithuania. Maybe it's not the very attractive country, it's quite northern. But Lukashenko's regime, so from Belarus, they started instrumentalized migration crisis. They invited migrants from all over the world, from Iraq, from Syria, from Africa, wherever, to go to Minsk. They paid, of course, a lot of money to get to Minsk, but they were promised to be sent to Europe. And then they collected all these poor guys, they threw them into Lithuanian forest and said, go, this is Europe. So it was instrumentalized. We had to stop this because suddenly we rose up with thousands of migrants in Lithuania. What to do with them? If they will travel to other Western countries, they will bring them back to Lithuania because they came through Lithuania. So we built a fence, we built a concertina, we built a physical barrier, and we stopped this illegal migration. So we see how the regimes are inventive to cause the problems for us, even using the instrumentalized migration, not natural one, but unnatural ways to push them into Europe and to cause the problems.
That's crazy. I didn't know that Lukashenko is actually doing that. I'm glad you were able to stop it.
Yeah, we stopped that. Lukashenko did this on the border with Lithuania, with Latvia, then with Poland. So all the three countries had problems with illegal instrumentalized migration. It was not natural ways for migrants to get into Europe. It was organized criminal activity together with the Lukashenko regime. Now they are even more inventive because when we build a physical barrier, we stop part of the contraband.
Okay.
And the contraband mafia found out new ways to get over the physical barrier. Sometimes they use drones, but now they invented the new thing to use these hydrometeorological balloons, these weather balloons. They're sending like 40-50 kilograms of contraband, cigarette contraband, from Belarus to Lithuania using hydrometeorological balloons. This would be only a problem of contraband that we are trying to deal with. But it causes much more troubles, because if the balloons are going towards the airport, we need to close the airport. And if we close the airport for a few hours, for half a day, it's a big economical loss. It's a big loss for the reputation, etc., etc. So this how the regime is inventive and using very non-linear, very interesting approaches to cause us problems. Of course, we have these problems in the Baltic Sea, the underwater cables that could be damaged using the vessels, and we have drones, we have cyber attacks. Every day we face like tens of cyber attacks in Lithuania, and we need to strengthen. We need to be more resilient to this kind of new type of aggression, new type of hybrid warfare.
Now that you mention all of this, do you think that the European Union is doing enough? We saw Ursula von der Leyen, she proposed that we need to spend more on defense. We're seeing moves from NATO. The EU is saying we're going to focus on defense. We're going to become independent. We're seeing factories in Europe shifting toward a little bit more manufacturing when it comes to the defense sector. But is this enough, or are we way behind? Do you see like a positive change, or do you think we should do more? And another question I have is, like, I know I'm lucky coming from Slovenia, being surrounded with the EU countries. We don't feel the immediate threats like you do. We do know what's happening in Ukraine, of course, but it's still different when you're surrounded with EU countries, right? So do you think that the countries more inside the European Union, the ones that are not sharing the external borders, perhaps with Russia, are doing enough to support you, or is there a lack of understanding?
Well, there are two approaches, because the defense is a problem of, well, not a problem, but an issue of member countries itself. The countries themselves need to spend more on defense. Europe cannot take over everything, Europe as a whole, as a European Union. So, for example, Lithuania spends 5.4%. So we are spending almost biggest amount in European Union, the percentage of GDP for defense. So the countries on the border are paying much more than the southern countries on further from the front line. That's one. Of course, Europe woke up. I can say that Europe woke up already. We understand our problems. We understand the threats. We have like 20 packages of sanctions towards Russia. Okay, we have the rearmed Europe. plan, we have SAFE program, we have billions for potential billions of euros that could be spent on defense. And we have some special European programs or European money, for example, EDIP program, 1.5 billion euros for spending on defense together, more efficient, more European. These slogans that European President of the Commission said that they will be to spend better, together, European. So EDIP forces our industry to act together, forces our governments to buy European, and that's good. Now we have another program for startups, for our innovations in defense sectors, Agile program, almost $1 billion. So it's a new program from the Commission, also to boost our industrial capacity, to boost our defense industry, to make it here, not to buy somewhere from abroad, but to make it in Europe. So I think it's a good trend, but as you mentioned, of course, we are lagging behind. The Draghi report showed that we are not competitive anymore, and we are vulnerable, and we need to do much more about it. We are doing, but the problem is that European Union is a very slow organism.
That's true. Another thing I wanted to ask you about is, we know that as EU and also Lithuania has been dependent on Russian energy. Has that changed? If I'm not mistaken, you've dramatically reduced the dependency. And can you say a little bit more, why is this important and how did you manage to do it?
Well, first of all, Lithuanian story. It's a success story that we need to take as an example because we were fully dependent on Russian energy resources before. When we left the Soviet Union, we were still fully dependent energetically. And 3 decades, and we changed it dramatically. Now we are free completely from Russian energy. We were the first in Europe after the full-scale invasion in 2022 to fully disconnect from Russians' gas and electricity. Why? Because we invested for decades. For decades we had our energy independence strategy, and step by step we invested in infrastructure, we invested in the interconnections, we built our LNG terminal. Someone in Europe at that moment when we are building our LNG terminal told me, oh, do not build the LNG terminal, the LNG gas is quite expensive, we have plenty of gas in Europe. Where? Where from? Oh, from Russia. You have a Nord Stream, and we want to sell your Russian gas to us. No, thank you. We will build our own capacity. So now Europe is, as I mentioned, already awake. We have Repower Europe plan. We managed to negotiate and successfully adopt the new regulation. Phasing out Russian gas just before Christmas. Phasing out Russian gas, very important regulation. Is a concrete step. It's not only a strategy, a plan. It's a concrete step regulation, and it's obligatory for all the countries to ban Russian gas completely, and we will not have any import from Russian gas in 1 year ahead. So that's, I think, a success story. We are looking forward to completely disconnect from Russian oil. Okay. But, you know, with the Hormuz issue, we are a little bit slow because we need a political will to do it. But slowly, step by step, we need to get rid of full dependence of Russian fossil fuels, of course.
That's true, because I remember when Putin invaded Ukraine and we started with the first package of sanctions. And like you said, now we're over 20 packages, I think. A big problem is that we were still paying Russia for their imports of energy. So sanctions are not very useful when you're still dependent on that country.
Yes, exactly. You're fully right. We are still paying Russians. Some countries are still buying Russian oil and gas, and it's a huge problem. But that's why we have Repower Europe plan. We have concrete regulation. Hopefully we will have concrete regulation on oil as well. But to remember, the Putin started, at first he started the energy war against Europe, energy blackmail. The prices for gas and then subsequently electricity rose before full-scale invasion to Ukraine. That means that the Putin sent a signal. You are dependent on me, so don't do anything. I will invade Ukraine and you just sit and listen. But Europe woke up. And we are doing, I think we are now on the right tracks.
Well, so hopefully in the next couple of years, we're all going to be following the Lithuanian example and completely phase out Russian energy imports. Another thing I wanted to ask you is, how are people looking at Russia? I know that you do have some Russians living in Lithuania. What is their attitude towards Putin? How did people, just everyday people, average citizens of Lithuania, reacted when you got the news of Ukraine? Was there fear? Did you change anything? I don't know how it is with your military. Do you have mandatory training? Are you thinking about it? Just, how is this affecting the everyday life of people and their feelings? Because a lot of them, the older population, surely remembers the horrors of the Soviet Union.
Well, we don't have much trouble with Russian minorities because it's a very low number, like not more than 2% of Russian minorities we had over the decades in Lithuania. It's a quite different situation in Latvia and Estonia. They have a quite bigger minority, so they had this problem always. But now we have a lot of immigrants from Ukraine, and it's okay. It's Ukrainians. We are welcoming them if they are refugees from war, real refugees. We have a big number of Belarusians, but also part of them are the refugees from the regime. So they are really pro-Ukrainian, pro-Lithuanian. We don't have any problems with that. We had some refugees from some immigrants from Russia, but we closed. Now it's illegal for the Russians cannot enter Lithuania. We closed.
Really?
Yeah, we closed the border.
Okay.
Neither Russians and Belarusians also is quite complicated. So we stopped this flow. Ukrainians are welcome, but Russians, of course, are not welcome. Of course, people realize the threat. We always realized the threat. It was nothing new for us. It's not the first war that Russia started. The war in Georgia started in 2008. We had a war in Georgia. Please remember that. We have south of Ossetia and Abkhazia still occupied on the Russians. And we have the Crimea in 2014. So we had many wake-up calls. And Europe woke up only after full-scale invasion. But we in Lithuania, we realized that we have the threat. We need to be strong ourselves. We need to convince our European partners, our European allies and transatlantic allies that Russia poses a threat for us. Now I think everyone understands and everyone is on the same page, despite that we are a little bit lagging behind.
And when we're speaking about Lithuania, what is the political situation there? Who's in the government? Who's leading the government? When's your next elections?
Well, in 2 years we have parliamentary elections. Now we, the Homeland Union Lithuanian Christian Democrats, we are EPP colleagues, we are leading in polls. So hopefully we could win the next elections. Now the Social Democrats are in the power together with two other political groups, but in just 2 days ago, they kicked off one political party out of the government and invited another one, the Democrats. So the government is changing right now. It's a very good question for this week because we are undergoing the governmental change in Lithuania. It will still be pretty much the same coalition, but with some slight changes in the government. Even the prime minister could change. So, new leader of Social Democrats, we think that he could take the post of the prime minister. So maybe in a week we will have a new prime minister of Lithuania, still Social Democrats, and in 2 weeks we will have a new prime minister from the Conservatives.
Okay, so the situation is developing.
Situation is developing in Lithuania, yes.
We'll keep an eye on that. And what are some main issues that you discuss in national politics? I'm imagining defense is a big one, but anything else besides that?
Yeah, Lithuania is doing quite well on macroeconomical standards. We are always in top 5 in Europe if you measure any macroeconomical indicator. Probably it's a matter of our economy, which is quite resilient. It's quite diversified. we learned from energy crisis, we learned from COVID crisis. The Russia and China always pressed us because, we had a quarrel with China a little bit, and the Chinese are pressing Lithuanians quite harshly, and we are cooperating with Taiwan much more. So our economical policy is quite brave, but we are used to be under attack and under pressure. That's why we are really prepared for any kind of intervention. So if the economy of the European Union is falling down because of some disturbances, some crisis or whatever, Lithuania is doing quite well because we are quite resilient. So when we were in the power, we put on the right tracks the Lithuanian economy. Now the issues, of course, are defense. We support the Social Democrats when they are implying the necessary measures to be more strong, to invest more in defense. For example, what's interesting, we are having, the United States are leaving Europe, the United States troops are leaving from Germany, whatever, but we have a German brigade. We invited the German brigade into Lithuania. Now we are building all the necessary infrastructure. And it's really important because having a German brigade on our soil, it's very
reassuring.
It's reassuring. Yeah. It's a signal for Russia. We are not alone. Okay, we have Germans on our soil. So in defense, security, we had recently a very big cyber attack. So we are always under the discussion how to be more resilient, to strengthen our systems, governmental systems. So it's not new. We are always under construction for being more energy independent, for being more political independent, cultural independent, etc., etc., etc. So we are small but active country, very active country, and I think we are on the right track.
No, for sure. It sounds like you are. And what are the biggest industries in Lithuania? Do you have a strong industrial base?
The industry is diversified. We don't have one big company or whatever. No, we are quite diversified. We have very strong biotech sector, and we have very strong laser or optics and all the light technology sector. Why? Because always we had very good physicists, chemists, biochemists, because it's a matter of Soviet Union. In Soviet Union, we didn't have any social sciences, the political sciences. It was not possible to do any politics in Soviet Union. But they let us to have engineers, let us to have physics, chemistry, biology, all these fundamental sciences. And after the collapse of the Soviet Union, some of our really bright scientists went to business and made startups, made good companies. They were developed, and now we are in some areas we are leading in the world. We are selling to the global market our products, and of course competing with China. Chinese invasion in the whole Europe. It's I think issue. One of the top issues is that we need to be more resilient to China's influence. And Lithuania, again, could be a good example because we don't want to trade with China because we understand that it's also a potential threat. It's a non-democratic country, and we need to be more flexible, more to create a parallel global trade partners. We cannot be reliant on raw materials from one exporter. So we learned our lessons.
Yeah, it's important that we don't replace one dependency on Russia with another dependency on China.
That's correct. For ages we were dependent on energy, but now it's a new trend is coming, the dependency on technology and raw materials.
Yeah.
And this is China. So in Europe, in Draghi report, we see all the indicators and red lights, and we understand we need to deliver. We need to adopt the right legislation in European Union, to be more resilient and to predict what will happen. Because in automotive sector, I know that you're working in the automotive sector very, very much, and thank you for that, because it's struggling. The automotive sector of Europe is really struggling because China just invaded our markets, subsidized and invaded our markets. So we need to look forward in the next steps. The next steps are autonomous driving. Okay, let's create these regulatory sandboxes. Let's create in some our cities the infrastructure to be on top, at least in this sector.
Yeah, we need to be strategic, just like Lithuania was when you knew that you have to phase out from Russian dependency. But thank you so much, Paulius. Thank you for all your work here in the European Parliament, for all the good fights we're fighting together to ensure the European Union remains strong and, well, protected and safe. So thank you for taking the time and shedding the light on a little bit on the defense situation, on Russian situation, on our dependency on Russian gas. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Dear ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching tonight's episodes. I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I did. And if you did, please follow us on social media and watch the next episode next week. For now, this is all, and I wish you a very good night.